You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Well, now, this is extraordinary that Dick has turned up after last week. Popular opinion. Wow, did they ramp up behind you, Dickie? They said, let me read out some of the comments.
Oh, here we go.
I said, well, no, this is it. This is some of the comments. Incidentally, all the people, in order to give me a belting, you've got to have listened, so we appreciate everyone who listens. Don't you worry about that. And we're getting, they say, the way this is going, this podcast, it'll soon be off at the air. We're getting bigger and bigger, and I'm making you a star. I'm making you a star. I'm telling you that now.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
If I were, this is some of the comments we got from last week. If I were Richard, I'd leave the show like Don did. Well, Don didn't leave the show. I asked Don. I said Don should probably go because he was contrary, and he's a good friend of mine. I'm still classing him as a friend, Don, but I told Don to go, and he did, and hasn't come back. So let's just get that straight. Muffman has been a great addition to the show. You've got your supporters cranked up here.
You've got them excited, Sam.
You say it's about me that I don't care what people think. This bloke said to me, Richard and Ivan have filled in when Don left. Well, I'm not sure that they filled in. I think that's not quite true. Dick's been here while Don was here, I think, weren't you?
No, I came after Don.
Oh, Ivan was here.
Yeah,
oh,
Ivan
yes,
was.
So
Ivan
they
was
think
here,
that I got you to fill in because Don left. Don't blame Richard for the bad press that I'm copping and getting cancelled. Well, I haven't got cancelled from anything. And the bad press is that I said, how simple-minded are people? I said, you've invited guests in that have got me into trouble, like the neo-Nazi man and the man Paul Motor. What do you think that I just put people on that Dick suggests? Dick suggests people to put on. I have quite my own idea if I want to have them on. If you take that seriously, what do you think of that Dick just brings people in? I say, sit down, I'll interview you. Dick's an absolute asset. Sam thinks... Sam thinks, what did I write there? Dick is an absolute asset. Sam thinks that his input to spread of politics and culture and the Australian Western world, that you have know more about it. Dick on stop. Jesus. I can't even read my own writing. They think that you're brilliant at world politics and that you're teaching me about the Western culture.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You're joking? Don't beat up on Dick. Give his time to help. He gives his time to help the loss of Ben Fordham. Sam, who is it? Sam was an absolute arsehole to Dick. Clearly, Carey is being paid to be on here. I don't know what that means. Mistake to annex Dick and brings a lot to the table.
So those hundred accounts I set up have paid off.
This went on, Dick. No, he said I was bloody savage on you. Well, I was only trying to get you involved. What?
Can I? I thought. I didn't think it was necessarily that bad what you did last week. I mean, you have copped a bit of heat over a few of the interviews that I had suggested to you, and I thought I think people were a bit unfair in the comments and stuff this week. You have every right. You took a belting, and you have every right to give me one occasionally if you want to.
Dick, if you think the people you suggest me to interview, I'm worried about I get a belting because you suggest them. What that means I haven't got a brain. I know exactly who I want to interview, and I appreciate you. I'm not blowing wind up your ass, don't you think of this, Dickie?
No.
I appreciate you putting people up to interview. I can decide if I want to interview them. So,
exactly.
But if people think, don't blame Dick for getting cancelled. I haven't got cancelled from anywhere. So anyhow, Dickie.
There it is.
It's good. No, I'm just saying that... I've put you on the map here, Dick.
You have?
People were just thinking you're an incidental contributor. Now you're becoming the star here.
Wow, I wouldn't go that far, mate.
So,
I just try and help out if I can.
yeah. So here we are. We briefly discussed this, but so Dan Andrews' government,
Yes.
along with Brett Sutton, who was the health minister, have been exposed, the government, for the absolute disgraceful liars they are. This is the government, not those two people necessarily,
Yes.
so we're careful to say it's the government.
That's true.
For not trusting the science about COVID, just taking on it themselves to lock down this state and cripple it. And it's probably hasn't got any better since the next regime has taken over, Miss Allen, or Mrs. Allen, or Ms. Allen, or Jacinta Allen. So this it's all the chickens coming home to roost with the I Cook
Extraordinary.
Foods, the dishonesty of the crash into Mr. Muleman and the huge payout. It's all, and the money spent. It's unfortunately, I don't think you can sue people who are former politicians or former
Unfortunately.
governments.
Maybe we could have a class action where the whole state was economically bankrupted by these.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
That is the point, and it's happening over in America with Fauci. He is found to be the fraud that everyone thought he was. So, what do you make of that, Dick? And we said this on this podcast many times that it was a disgrace, and it turns out they didn't follow the science at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've mentioned it before on the show that I think there is a deliberate attempt to destroy Western civilization, and maybe put other people in charge of the world who are not, basically us, which is maybe China. You could maybe make an argument, maybe Russia could be part of that, or the BRICS nations, and, maybe a couple other rogue states that we won't go into. But, it seems like, that it was completely unnecessary. I mean, there were some countries in the world that didn't lock down. For example, there was a Western country, Sweden, that didn't lock down. Now, I mean, that's quite a politically correct country that often goes along with a lot of things, but they didn't lock down at all. And their COVID deaths were lower than ours, and their economy didn't suffer. So I have no idea why they managed to exempt themselves when most of Europe locked down, most of America. America locked down a little. I mean, obviously the first year was under Donald Trump, so obviously Trump wasn't that keen on it, but he did go along with some lockdowns. But the Daniel Andrews one, as we well know, was the longest one in the world. I think the second longest is in Argentina. And, it was just insane. I've never seen anything like it. It was like something out of Stalinist Russia. You remember what it was like. We had curfews. We couldn't go up to shop. You couldn't play golf, right? I remember you doing video. That's one of the first times I saw these videos of you and thought, this is quite great.
This is correct, and you had to be 6 feet apart. Who does just 6 feet apart? Okay, if you were 7 feet apart, but 6 feet apart, you couldn't go in. You had to go in twos. You couldn't go in threes. It was an absolute nonsense, and we thought we'll trust the science, but science had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Brett Sutton and Dan Andrews, on behalf of the government, just made the rules up.
It was full communism.
So I've taken another belting by people who say most of the things I say on here are inaccurate because they get their news from other sources. And do I ever verify anything I say? I verify everything I say, so much so that I verified this, that Trump, we're on to Trump because it's spreading over here to this election, and I see that the trumpet of patriots, Clive Palmer, he's associated with, and some of Dutton's policies are Trump-oriented, and now they're sort of angling to smear him because of Trump. So Trump said that he's not going to South Africa to the G20 alliance because he says the South African government are taking land and farms off the white farm owners, and there's genocide, and they're killing them.
Shocking.
Killing them. Yeah. And he said he's not going to go to a country that has that policy and be a hypocrite. Seems pretty reasonable, but he's been criticised for that. He's thinking of withdrawing from the World Health Organization because Tedros is another. They're all in this world order of corruption.
Yeah, the globalists.
And the globalists, Sticky, and so And then you sent me some stuff after I just coaxed you, and I
coaxing.
thought you'd got the sulks because you usually send me shit, and I had to say to you, "What have you given us the arse?" And you started sending me stuff again, and I thought, "Oh no, he's back in town." You said the UK government it has been found out,
Yes.
and it's a bit like here, and it's a bit like Hollywood, that they get paid to slant their pictures and their television shows and their soapies in a political bent
exactly.
that promotes the bias of left-wing politics.
Yeah, and diversity, equity, inclusion agendas and things.
That's right, and the government is part of it, giving funds to television companies and television production units to slant the programs they put to air that favour their politics.
No,
and
it's
I can give
extraordinary.
you an example. I
Yep.
used to watch
What show?
Designated Survivor.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love,
show.
Designated Survivor. And then after about the third episode or the third series, they started to have a woman president
Yep.
who looked very much like Hillary Clinton, making all the decisions, and it had all the left-wing policies. And I thought they have taken this out of being a sort of a realistic show,
Yeah.
even though it's made up, to just actually slanting it towards democratic politics over there. And they also did it with the House of Cards.
Yeah.
The House of Cards
Yeah.
with
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. It was started off well, and then it just became a
Yep.
political arm of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So they work in very devious and
ways.
mysterious ways to try and brainwash you.
It's happened all over. I mean, it might sound a bit daggy, but I was a huge fan of that show Doctor Who growing up. I don't know if you remember Doctor Who. It started off a kind of white old man who's like a kind of grandfather character, and he went through a different number of actors. Recently, it became a woman, which everyone was sort of upset about in the fan base. And then the newest iteration of Doctor Who is like a 25-year-old black guy who's gay. And also, not only the actor is gay, Doctor Who is now gay. Doctor Who is kissing another man in a show like that was set like in like the 18th century. Doctor Who is now a 25-year-old black man, goes back and is having a homosexual affair in like the time of Jane Austen, as if that ever would have been accepted.
Yep.
You know, it's like insane. You know, but you just notice it going on everywhere.
So, on the basis of that, along the same lines, and this I'm in full agreement with this, and has my full backing, that Nova Peris, used to be Nova Peris Kneebone, but she's not with Mr. Kneebone anymore, I don't think.
No Kneebone.
She has started this movement she called Harmony.
What's that
and
about?
it's stand up to hate, and a fantastic thing. And she has co-opted captains of industry, men and women. Eddie Maguire's one of them. I can't think of the other two. I only remembered Eddie because I know Eddie. To stand up to hate, and that's fantastic. And we all should live in harmony. But what the logical extension of this is that we shouldn't be intimidated into not having an opinion about things that we don't disagree with. Just because you disagree with people who have a different gender, a different sexual orientation, a different race, just because you don't agree or might disagree with them, that is not hate. That is just free speech. And I mean, we accept, of course, everyone who has a different religious bent to you, has a different gender, wants to identify as a different gender. If you are a trans person and you want to identify as a woman, we accept that if you want to call yourself. But if you are a trans person who wants to play women's sport,
Say no.
I say no to that. If you think that is hate or that is not living in harmony, that is logical. You can call yourself a woman, and the community will accept you calling yourself a woman and a woman's name, but you are not a female.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter
Biologically.
how you are. You can call yourself a woman, but if you, by saying you are not a female just because you say you're a woman, unless you have 2 X chromosomes, you are not a female. And that is just a fact. And
Trust the
if
science.
you say that, if you get called out for saying that is hate speech or that's not living in harmony, that's where this gets clouded, because you get bludgeoned into having an opinion that is completely illogical and not factual.
A lot of women actually agree with you, Sam. Even some women on the left. I mean, people like J.K. Rowling, who wrote, Harry Potter. She thinks this and has gotten into a lot of trouble for saying this kind of thing. And obviously, she celebrated the recent High Court decision in the United Kingdom, which said that biologically, that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, which of course echoes what Donald Trump has recently announced in the United States. And also you've got someone like Germaine Greer, who is a radical leftist, in some sense, radical leftist feminist on some issues, but on that she is, with us. She'd be a welcome guest on the show if we could get her.
Well, see, just by the title, you said that a man is a man, a woman's a woman.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's not necessarily the argument. A female is a female, a male is a male. If you want to call yourself a male, a man,
Sure.
or a woman, and you're not of that female or male gender, that's fine. We will
long as you're an
accept
adult.
whatever you like to call yourself, and that's where this gets where this gets taken to the next level. So I interviewed a man here who said there was a lot of grooming going on in underage schools and primary schools.
That was a good interview.
About people hijacking your kids who the parents didn't know, grooming them towards the LGBTQ stance in society, which is fine if you want to be an LBGTQ advocate, and we don't care. But we said that if you push back and say, well, we don't think that should be up to the parents until they become of age or they decide what gender they want to be. They don't want teachers to be grooming your kids just because they have an agenda. If you push back on that, that's not hate speech, and that's not necessarily not living in harmony. You can't be intimidated into having an opinion just because someone says that that's okay for people to do that, Dickie.
Yeah, of course it is. And I think I'd say 90% of Australians would agree with you, and not just Australians who have been here a long time. I mean, a lot of new Australians. How do you think Muslim Australians feel about people trying to tell their kids that they're, how conservative the Muslim religion is? So, you know what I mean? Like, this is across the board in a sense detested by people, but I've no idea why. It's something that's essentially coming from the Department of Education, probably at the highest level.
So the harmony agenda that Novus Peres is on about is fantastic. Stand up to hate. We mentioned last week about all the things that are going on in this state, about brutality, muggings, drive-bys, inadequate bail laws, inadequate prison sentences, custodial sentences, by the antisocial things that are going on in this state, and yet their main priority was bringing in laws about hate speech. And you don't have to bring laws about that. It is illegal to incite violence. It's illegal to it's illegal to
call for violence or
call for violence. It's illegal to misname people by deliberately to dead name them if they've decided to call themselves a different name and
like
a different
Caitlyn
gender.
Jenner.
That's you don't need a law to that. That's on the statutes anyhow. Hates, political bias, anti-Semitism, but they. To divert attention from the parlous state that this state is in, you just have to see what's going on in this state to see that was just a ruse, all that legislation. You don't have to bring in laws for that. There are laws in the first place. You can't do any of that in this modern day and age, and it's just a diversion from how bad this state is. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of crimes you're seeing reported in the newspapers that are just the kind of crimes that happen in America or even South Africa. Machete-wielding people breaking into people's homes, murders happening, this, that and the other. And it's just like,
It's like it's no longer Australia. We're becoming some foreign country.
Well, so they've just apprehended the group, I think 5 of them, 5 young men between 25 and 35 who've ramroded all the top boutique stores in Collins Street, Burberry and Louis Vuitton and Giorgio Armani.
Yep.
They've found $1.5 million worth of handbags and perfume and clothing down at a store in Frankston somewhere. They found them out, and also they have people are getting paid $5 for a packet of cigarettes for people to rob. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Well, they've found a whole bootload of cigarettes that they go to 7-Elevens and hold up the cashiers and the people in the stores, and they're pinching the cigarettes, and the bikies, I'm told it is, the bikies are paying the young kids to go in and pinch, hold up the cigarettes, hold up the stores, and they give them $5 for a pack of cigarettes. If you couldn't work out who is firebombing the tobacconists, there's been 100 of them. How can't they apprehend the people that do that? Of the few tobacconists that haven't been firebombed, wouldn't be a good idea to put some surveillance on them, just waiting for it to happen. So they're not fair income about it.
No, they aren't.
But if you push back on all that, that is not living in harmony. That is
disharmony.
That is disharmony, and why wouldn't you come down heavily on those people?
And you could say it's the amount of taxation they put on cigarettes. I mean, you've all been to Thailand or Bali or whatever, and the price of cigarettes is like $5 or $7 over there.
But that's why they're doing it. It's $60 to get a packet of cigarettes.
I mean,
and
it's just
they're
ridiculous.
limiting to 20 a packet. And
I don't smoke, but
no. But the point is that the point is that. The government is worrying about hate speech and
it's a distraction, mate.
It is an absolute distraction from what's going on in the state.
They don't want to address the real problems, and they want to shut people up who do bring them up. And you mentioned South Africa before. I mean, that is exactly what happens when a society collapses. It was always promised that, if they ended apartheid, that, the white community in South Africa would never be attacked, and that to some extent it was kept under control when Nelson Mandela was still alive, who had a vision of, the two groups living together in harmony. But as soon as Nelson Mandela died, the murders of farmers just went off I played a documentary on it at my film festival. I couldn't believe just horrible. Whole families are being murdered, and it's so great to see Donald Trump actually standing up for it, because that's one of those issues that Western media will not touch.
So someone hears that, you'll say that this is not living in harmony, but this is an opinion you should have. There's a Sky Bus depot on the way out to Tullamarine, and it's got 3 flags above their depot. One is the middle flag is the Sky Bus depot logo.
Yeah.
The one on the left is the Torres Strait Islanders, and the one on the right is the Aboriginal flag.
No
Australian flag. If you point that out and you say, "Oh, well, that's hate speech," or that's why can't you say that? That is just ridiculous. That's unpatriotic. And
I mean, the Torres Strait Islander flag. I mean, I'd seen it, and I literally had to ask people, "What the hell is that?" It's like blue, isn't it? And it's got some little funny little shape on it. I mean, just have one flag, mate. Ours.
So if you say that there should be one flag, that can be construed
That's hate
by
speech.
the government. But they can take you to a certain level, or take you to task over just having an opinion like that. That's why we have to rely on the government to be fair. But the government aren't doing this to be fair. They're doing it to have you think their way. It's like Jane Fonda. Why is Jane Fonda out here spruiking about climate change and nothing more than a treacherous ward healer? Jane Fonda, who was against the Vietnam War, that's all right. She's been against everything possibly.
She's as far left.
For marrying Ted Turner, who probably set her up beautifully. She's out here wandering around lecturing us about climate change.
Which is another elite agenda.
Another elite agenda that has been disproven that many times over, except by the people who have an agenda, who get
the level
the funding.
of stupidity that people think if they're further taxed, like if the government taxes them more, that the weather will change. I mean, that's a level of kind of being fooled and duped. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean, and we all voted on this. Do you remember when there was like the carbon tax was a big issue? And of course, they brought that in under a different 100 other different visors.
Anyhow, Dickie, here we are back again. You must have had, you must have been
Interesting week.
buoyed by the support that you got. I thought, no, let's just go the jugular, Dick. Just get you
I agree.
to stand up for yourself.
And I don't think people should have given you such a hard time. It's good to have lively discussions about things, and that's what this show's about.
Did they say you shouldn't come back on? Did you get advised not to come back on?
A couple of people did, but I said, I said.
What did you say, Dickie?
I said no. I think Sam has every right to say that. It was true that I had, suggested a couple of interviews that maybe had.
No, I'm not talking about the interviews.
Yeah, but that was,
What about I said you bring nothing? Bring nothing. All you bring is headlines, and get me to ask you about them.
Well, as I said, I don't think that's true. I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about interesting topics, and
what else
I can wax lyrical.
About?
Well, the Russian base in Indonesia. This has kind of become a hot button issue in this election.
Russian base in Indonesia,
well,
yes.
I don't know if it's Russian propaganda, which is I think what Labor says it is, but there were rumours that, because actually Russia does have a strategic partnership with Indonesia, that they might put a Russian base, which is obviously not too far from Australia. And obviously that then becomes a political issue because, well, Albo is seen as weak on foreign policy, right?
Who do you think will win the election, Dickie? Who do you think? Well, you think...
I think Peter Dutton,
you think
maybe that's more of a hope. I hope Peter
don't
Dutton.
Want you to be a hope. I want you to... You're an
analyst.
Analyst. You are an analyst. This is not hope. Who do you think will win the election?
I fear Albo will win.
He'll win with a leg in the air.
Yeah.
Mate, because we are a blue-collar country.
Yeah.
And that's
they're not a blue-collar party anymore, though, mate, That's what we point out. If they did support the working class, maybe I'd be for them more. But they don't. They support foreigners and they support foreign agendas like destroying our. You've all seen the price of your electricity bill. You've all seen the cost of your groceries.
Yeah.
Through the roof. Now, if you're very rich, it doesn't matter, and that's why you've got the Teals. You'll notice the Teals took place in very affluent suburbs like Brighton and Kooyong, where the house, if you own a house in Kooyong, it's worth $3 or $4 million, mate. You're not really worried about the price of energy. You know what I mean? If you've got millions and millions of dollars.
And the Greens, good God. Anyhow, there we are. So, and then we got, and this is just as an aside, nifty, shifty Nick, the Lord Mayor, who co-opted Anthony Koutoufides and Sue Stanley to run a bit of a health, to make the CBD patrons of Melbourne a little healthy. So far, nothing. These people helped him get elected and now are not, hasn't been forthcoming in rewarding those people by doing something for the fitness of the patrons who live in this society, nifty Nick. You should not be too disingenuous for the people who help you get into power or into the Lord Mayorship. Mm-hmm. You should stand by the people who help you in some sort of way.
You should stick to your election promises, don't you?
That's what you should do.
Donald Trump has, that's for sure.
Yes, that's what he does. So there we are. Anything else, Dickie?
Oh no, it is something. The Liberals and Labor are something of a uni party. You know what I mean? Like it always shocks me the way the Liberals buy into things like climate change. There was that recent controversy where Peter Dutton, would not say. I don't believe women should be in the front line in the army. Which is the most dangerous, and it's something I think the front line should be for men because due to the physical aspect of it. I don't have a problem with women being in the army and obviously contributing because I think they can contribute a lot, but in the most dangerous situations that require brute strength and where it's also the chance of getting your head blown off is quite high. I don't think women should be in the front lines.
Mind you, they dropped the standards, physical standards and mental standards for men because people weren't enlisting.
That's true.
So they became not quite the strong fighting force that they used to be because of DEI, Dickie, and all that.
Yeah, and you've got the Chinese, Navy encircling Australia doing demonstrations. You've got a Russian base coming to Indonesia. I mean, I think you've got to vote in the Senate. You've got to vote for your Clive Palmers and your One Nations.
The trumpeter
patriots, mate. Yep.
And well, there we are, Dick. We've weathered the storm. You're back, and let's just wait for some comment. What, you're going to shake my hand?
Why not?
So we're going to wait for the comments to come in. Nice to see you and Dick have made up. We have not had to make up about
It's all
anything.
good. It's my birthday today, by the way, so you can...
Your birthday?
It is. I'm 56 years of old, and I feel old.
I tell you what's caught up with your IQ, Dickie.
That's correct.
56. Good God, I wish I can't remember when I was 56. Well, then in that case, what a great reunion. The 56th birthday, the great warding off has ceased. So that's it. That is it, isn't it, Dickie? Well
That's it,
done.
Sam. Thank you,
Good
mate.
boy.